Hello, everybody, and welcome to another amazing episode of Unstoppable Success. I am your host, Jaclyn Strominger, and on this podcast, we hear from amazing leaders and business professionals who have had unstoppable success. We get to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they get to share their tips, their wisdom, and insights so that you can have unstoppable success too. And today I am so excited to introduce you to Jodi Scott. Let me tell you a little bit about Jodi. There's going to be so many amazing nuggets in this episode. But first, her company, well, it is Green Goo, but they are the plant-based first aid. First time ever, right? Super adventurous. She has a master's in health psychology, specializing in, and I had to like make sure I could say this word, neuroimmunology. She was pre-med. I'm gonna say that 10 times fast, not. Um, she has a passion for mind-body connection and was shaped by her journey, guiding her to explore the relationship between natural medicine and human resilience. And with a deep appreciation of improving lives, she worked in private practice to support underserved patients while her sister pursued herbalism. Great. Together, they made a huge transformative impact with natural remedies, and the realization led to the creation of Green Goo, a brand dedicated to closing the gap between well being and alternative medicine. They are a proud B Corporation recognized for philanthropic efforts in developing countries and partnerships in sustainable agriculture. But here's the part that's quite interesting, which I can't wait for her to dive into. They sold the company, and then they brought the company back, and there is a lot of nuggets in there, and that is a lot of unstoppable success. So, welcome, Jodi.
Hello, hello. It's good to be here with you.
So great. Okay, so I'm so curious about this part. Like, what was the real like? Was there a condition or something that you're like, we've got to come up with like something that is natural for first aid, or coming up with something that was plant based? What was the light bulb?
Yeah, so as you said, I got my master's in health psychology, specialized in psychoneuroimmunology, and I was training resident physicians on the biopsychosocial model. So, I mean, what that means is that I wanted to improve healthcare. I was very passionate about rather than simply prescribing, looking at the patient as a whole, and then as like at the individual level, what is the relationship between our thoughts and our body, our immune system, nervous system, and how that all works together. And so, with that being said, my mom, sister, and I were always really mindful about what we were eating and even our personal care products. So I thought I was living in like a pretty good life in terms of cleanliness and wellness. And one day when I was pregnant, I got a cut and I went to my first aid cabinet and I opened it up and was like, first of all, what a mess. I was like, there's like all these expired products, everything was a disaster. And then I decided to look at the ingredients and I went, whoa, how did I like overlook this? Like, why did I think this is the only solution? So I went to my sister, who's an herbalist and a midwife, who's a total purist. And I'm like, okay, if my sister's doing this, we got a real problem. And I was like, Jen, I'm like, do you use like traditional first aid? And she was like, well, yeah, my husband's an EMT. That's what we use. And I'm like, why? And like my sister doesn't even buy like a bag of chips, like no processed food. And so we started looking around and we were like, wow, we're not alone. The natural consumer is willing to abandon their natural ethos because they're just told these are the only solutions that get the job done. And
Right.
then, like, if it doesn't sting, burn, itch, or, sting, burn, or itch, or I guess
It
better say
doesn't
this, if
work.
it
It
doesn't,
doesn't work.
right,
I know
exactly.
I know that it's working and making the um whatever the stuff go away,
Right. You're like,
because
that's the only
it's
way it's
sitting.
supposed to work. Yeah, exactly. And then it was really interesting to learn that like chronic skin conditions are an all-time high. And they're chronic skin conditions, and the OTC space is really designed for like acute skin conditions. If you have a cut, a scrape, poison ivy, a cold sore, use for a handful of days. And if symptoms persist, you need to go see your physician, which is like super inconvenient. And
And
we're
get
like,
on
we
prednisone.
yeah, exactly. And we're like,
Sorry.
we need to reinvent first aid. Like, why? First of all, we can make something with higher efficacy that performs better and can really address what's happening with these chronic skin conditions. And oh, by the way, also be plant-based. So Green Goo was born.
I absolutely love that. And all I'm thinking about is like, okay, you will laugh when I say this. It's like if I get a cut, what do? I pour hydrogen peroxide on it. I'm a hydrogen per I like it's like my Windex. Like if you ever watch, the Greek,
Yes.
whatever, my big fat Greek wedding. I'm like hydrogen peroxide, dude, it does everything. I've got pimple. Whatever.
And I'm like lavender, rosemary, calendula.
Right? I'm just like because it bubbles. That's why I'm looking at
hmm
you. So I love that Green Goo started and you started making this. And so, family business. Talk about some of first of all, at the beginning, I want to talk about trials and tribulations. So, talk about the trials and tribulations of getting a product started and how you went to do that. And then I want to talk about the family bit.
Well, it was super interesting too because, here we are brewing these formulas in our kitchen, like growing the herbs in our backyard. Matter of fact, the production just became so bananas that we had to take our camping equipment and build an outdoor kitchen because we were producing so much. Yeah. And and here we needed to scale. And this was just like step one of going to market. And it didn't follow sort of a traditional standard operating procedure. So that was very interesting in terms of could we find a manufacturer? And it actually took someone whose son had eczema and he used our product and he goes, the world needs this. This is the first thing that my son has ever used over the counter that actually works. And so he helped us build a dedicated team with a dedicated line and a dedicated process to be able to do this. But then in addition to that, it was okay, retailers started reaching out to us and we're like, well, we don't know what it means to be in market. Like, what is packaging supposed to look like? What are UPCs? What are sell sheets? What are line sheets? And so there was very much that learning curve internally in terms of building that model of produce, ship, and then what does it look like at the end on the shelf. And
Right.
I'll never forget going to a national first aid buyer and I'm like, I've got plant-based first aid. And he's like, those two words don't go together. What are you even talking about? Because plant-based wasn't something we talked about then.
Right.
Like today you can get like plant-based water, I guess, you know, but but
Right.
plant
Right.
yeah, plant-based and
Right.
they're just like, is it natural? What does that mean? And so a lot of what I was doing was educating. And so I was going to trade shows and conferences and meeting with buyers in person and sitting down with them to really give them data to help them with this idea that plant-based could actually work. And then what was really cool is the FDA started investing in plant-based. So we were one of the first products to be
Wow.
registered with the FDA that was
Kudos.
plant-based.
Yay.
And that was really cool to be able to call out the plants as active ingredients as we started shifting into what we today call like the plant-based renaissance.
Right. Okay. So I have a couple questions. So number one, how long when so you go to the medicine cabinet and you're like, why has this happened before? How long did it take you and what was that research like to find that first product? Like from thought to cooking stuff up in the kitchen.
Well, thankfully, my sister had a mentor who was an herbalist who'd been making medicinal saps at that time for almost 40 years.
Oh,
And so she had kind of like a first aid remedy, a after sun burn and scar remedy, and I think like a dry skin. I think those were like the three things. So we were able to use those as benchmarks to say, okay, what other plants do we want in these? How do we want to formulate? And what was interesting to us is like you go into a Walgreens or, a CVS and you look at the first aid set and you're just like, oh my gosh, just like my first aid cabinet, totally overwhelming. And we were like, we don't want that for people. We want to simplify their lives. There doesn't need to be one product, one solution. Is there a way that we can make it multifaceted? And so when you're looking at the first aid set and then looking at what's called IRI data, which is like consumer behavior data that allows you to get an idea of like why people are consuming, what they're consuming, and some of those metrics. And we were like, okay, we see what people are looking for in first aid. Let's see what we can do from a formulation standpoint. And for us, it was a little different because typically, let's say you have a cold sore, a lot of the formulas lean into the antiviral component. And my sister and I were like, well, when you get a blister and when you get a cold sore, they present for very two different reasons. However, the body itself is actually responding in a very similar way. So perhaps if we focus on what the herbs do with the body, maybe we can have where it's solving more than one problem. So our formula, our first aid formula, which is like the Swiss Army knife of first aid. So it is your first aid kit on the go. Cut
Okay.
scrapes, but then bug bites, bee stings, poison ivy, cold sores, ingrown toenails, rashes, sunburns, pain relief, all in one little tin. And you can take it with you everywhere you go, which is so convenient.
So convenient. It's like it makes it it's hikeable. And I say hikeable because when you're
Truly.
out hiking, you need that stuff and you don't want something to weigh you down.
Exactly. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, how did I not have this before?
Wow,
And
okay.
it doesn't dry your skin out like a lot of these other
Right.
solutions. And you can use it for longer than 7 to 10 days.
Right. Okay. So how long did it take you though to actually get that first product actually like out on the market?
I mean, we started at the farmer's market. So it was
Okay.
overnight in terms of the farmer's market. I would say from a retail standpoint, it was almost 3 years before it was actually in retail. Like we had mom and pops picking us up. But I'd say the first major retailer was about 3 years into it. And they were reaching out to us before we even thought about, oh yeah, I guess we could go and knock on retailers' doors. And then it was really cute because like after the first summer at the farmers market, someone called and they were like, "So we don't live in Idaho and we'd like to repurchase your product. Do you have a website?" And we're like, "Well, that's a great idea. We should do that too." So that was just a great example. There was a lot of like learn as you
Right.
go.
Right. Learn as you go. Oh my God. I'm like, I totally love it. So you're getting this stuff going. So talk about some of the the hurdles, because I know this is not just like, okay, we're going to cook this and we're going to go to there. I'm sure there were a few trials and tribulations before you went from the farmer's market to the retail. So what were some of those things and how did you get past them?
Mm, you just keep going. So
You
there
just
was,
said you keep going
you
and it's
just
like
keep
that,
going.
right?
You're in
Because it's in your
uncharted.
heart, right? It's in your heart,
Yes.
right?
Yes, and the customers were just responding so well. There were customers who back to eczema. That was a common theme. My child was no longer embarrassed to go to school. My son is a paraplegic. This is the only thing that works. I had poison ivy for 6 months and I've just learned to live with it for the summer. This has gone in 2 days. And so just having all of that reinforcement really helped push and move this forward. But I mean, it was every day. It was whether we were trying to fit into retail and we had to go and get EDI and we didn't know what that meant, or it was scrambling because we got an opportunity to go to a trade show that we weren't planning for, or we finally get that big order and we don't have the funds to be able to produce the product to be able to fulfill that order. So then it's going to try to find the financing to be able to put that into place, or back to the manufacturing. And so you're sort of just constantly faced with new challenges and then learning to be okay with that and
Right.
not having that paralysis and lots of no's. Here we are, retailers are reaching out to us, and then we go we're like, okay, let's go see more retailers, and then back to we were one of those early frontiers of forging the path for plant-based. Not everyone was there, especially the major retailers. And so
Right.
being comfortable with them saying like, no, not right now, but we'll keep you on our radar. And then what was really cool is very quickly, as we saw in the natural channel, plant-based very quickly got the momentum that it so deserves.
Right.
So it really was just a daily challenge and not losing too much sleep and taking care of yourself along the way because I was on the plane 3 weeks out of every month. And at the time, I had a 2-year-old. And so, that's tough being away from your family, along with being in business with your family.
Right. Right. So you were on flying around getting product in different places and
Yes.
so you were
So, I
like
mean, nobody
you
was
were
doing,
business development.
yeah, nobody was doing virtual meetings. And I had my first like major buyer meeting, which was the Air Force Exchange. And that's because we grew up in the military and we were really passionate about bringing these products to the military. And my dad, when he was deployed, was taking Green Goo with him all the time. And so there was just kind of this natural following. And it's so great because, like you said, it's hikeable. They can put them in the little tin in their fatigues. And when they're deployed or out in the field, if they get a cut, a scrape, abrasion, chafing, chapped lips, like here, you've got this little thing that just gets it all done. And so I'm like, okay, mom and sister, like, okay, what are we gonna wear to this meeting? And they're like, we're not going. I'm like, what do you mean you're not going? And my mom's like, I'm the designer. I do all the graphic design. I don't go to sales meetings. And then my sister's like, I'm the herbalist. I'm the formulator. I don't go to sales meetings. I'm like, did I just draw the short straw? And like, I have to do this. But then I found I just like really, really enjoyed it. I'd never done sales before. But it's so easy when you believe in what you're doing
Right. Right.
and
It
building
was
these.
your story that started it, right? So I
Yes.
mean, so you have that passion.
Yes, and just when you're with the customer so closely and you're seeing the value that they're getting from it, and then being able to share that with buyers, and then seeing the buyers get the joy from it, like that national pharmacy buyer when he was like, "Okay, plant-based and first aid don't go in the same sentence." I was like, "Here you go. Take these tins home and let me know what you think." And he came back like a week later and was like, "My whole family loves this." He's like, "Okay, let's figure out like let's do this." And so it was
Right.
just so rewarding. And eventually I figured out how to like bring my husband and daughter on some of these trips and turn them into adventures. So I'd be in a grocery store meeting and they would be at the children's museum, and then I'd pop out and we could hang out a little bit and explore a town for a day. And now my daughter thinks she's just this big world traveler.
I think that's so fantastic. So, you know, listeners, I want you to really hear what Jodi is saying. First of all, obviously, if you're in the entrepreneur space or you're at a company, it doesn't really matter. You have to have passion for what you're doing. Number one. Number two is to not give up. It's the persistence, it's the grit, and know that I would say probably one of the first things that you're saying that I think is so important for it to having that unstoppableness is is truly to think of who you're serving and the benefit, right? I mean, making other people like, eczema. Oh my God. Know all about it, right? So important, but to not give up and what you had is you had your vision in sight. It's not giving up of your vision and knowing what your mission is for the product and what you want to do. So don't give up on that and just and keep knowing it might not be 3 years, it could be 4 years, but success. And as you said, be comfortable with the no's because every no leads to a yes.
And finding joy even in the discomfort. I remember I was going to get my hair done before one of my travel adventures, and I was just like down. I didn't want to leave, and I just was in that place of just ugh. And it was really my hairdresser that was like, "You're getting ready to go where?" Like, what a gift to be able to go to that place. Because here I was like, I'm going to get in, I'm going to get out, and I'm just like head down. And she's like, look up, look at
Right.
the sky there. Go walk the street. You don't have to spend money. Like, because I was like, I can't spend money, do anything. Go walk the street and just like embrace the people around you and in being in a different environment. And all of a sudden, like I went on that trip and I just had a completely different perspective. And then I started, my new thing became like, what's my favorite walkable town? Because I could just
Ah,
like get good exercise, get fresh air and enjoy and appreciate the space. And it wasn't expensive. And I would come back with such a deep appreciation for going to Kansas City or or going to St. Louis and all these different places where I'm like, I would have never thought that Bentonville, Arkansas was so much fun to walk,
Right.
And finding that joy because you can kind of choose. Is it just going to be hard all the time, or can you kind of come above the line? And that gives you some of the juice that you need to be unstoppable during those really tough times.
Listeners, did you hear what you just said? Take note. You have to find the joy. You have to find that joy in the small things. You have to find that. And that's like, I love like, what's the best walkable city? Enjoy where you're going. And the other thing that you said is it's a choice. You can choose. You can choose to be pissy, or you can choose to have the smile on your face and embrace it. And I'm going to bet by choosing to embrace it and enjoy where you are, that's an energy that comes off when you're in that meeting.
That is a really great point. I never thought about that,
It
but you're
is.
right because you're emitting that
Mhm.
in the presence. Yeah, that's good.
And it comes out. And energy, people can perceive an energy, right? It's like the same thing as like if you I feel like I say this all the time, before you pick up the phone and talk to anybody, smile, because they can feel and see your smile through the phone. They can. It's an energy. It's an energy. If you're smiling, they're going to feel it.
That is so good. And that's like back to that, like when you spend that time filling up your cup,
Hmm.
how you can share that with others and it just radiates. That's good. And I think as an entrepreneur, and I understand this so well, is that you oftentimes think you have to sacrifice yourself every step of the way. And so when you are investing in yourself like that, obviously has a radiation around you that's going to have a positive impact, a halo effect
Right.
on
Right.
your output.
It has such a huge impact on that output. So I want to kind of dive in a little bit on the family dynamics because I grew up in a house with two parents that worked together, and that was good, bad, and ugly.
That's going to
Um,
be my daughter one day. She's going to be like, I've got some stories to tell.
so what was it like, and what is it and has it been like working with your family?
Well, and my husband left the IT space to come work with us, and my sister's husband left EMT to come work with us, and my dad retired military, would sit and label. He was relatively quiet, but then he would pipe up every once in a while and have some things to say, naturally. And I mean, the good news is my mom's sister and I were always best friends, and we valued
Oh,
the relationship so much that we were incredibly intentional. That does not mean it was rainbows and butterflies every day, but what I can say is that we had a little bit of an edge because we were so intentional. And so that's why I really encourage people to set the time aside. Because had we not done that, when we did hit those hard moments, I don't think we would have weathered it the way we did. And it would have been incredibly compromising, unfortunately. And so when we first started, and we had heard, family businesses can be toxic. And then not only do the relationships get tarnished, but then you breed a toxic culture and then you hire toxicity and then it's a a really
right,
non-productive environment. Exact back to that halo
right,
effect. It can work
right,
for you or against
right,
you, right?
right.
And so I started reaching out to family offices, therapists, people who had been in business with their family or had coached people who were family businesses. And I was like, give me some best practices. And so we sat down and really focused on some of those resources. And, some of them were find your zone of genius. Actually sit down with each one of you, figure out what your zone of genius is, and then put that person in that seat and then
Yeah.
respect that seat. Give them the autonomy to do their job. You don't get to throw up your family card and be like, oh, I get to just go ahead and override this. Like you follow that protocol. And it seems obvious, but one of the interesting side effects is when someone is not in their zone of genius, whether it's your family member or not, it can make for a very difficult environment. And then when you start overriding their work and they don't feel like they have the autonomy and the independence and the confidence to do what they're doing, that gets even tougher. And so it was very interesting to see how well that worked for us and really respecting each other's lanes. And then when we brought in employees, taking that same practice. And so the employees got to get that like family feel, but without all the drama that could come with it. And don't get me wrong, there were meetings. I wanted to
Right.
throw out my family card. I'm like,
But
ah.
but I think the really key thing here, no matter whether you are in a family business, I mean it matters, or you're running a business, zone of genius is really important. And I like that you said intention. So, did you guys have like almost like a pre-meeting that said, okay, if we're going to do this, we got to do it XYZ?
We did. So we sat down and just like really workshopped it and then continue to modify it. Like, we have like what we call the family operating system and it does parallel, I think, like a healthy business operating system and also parallels a personal operating system. When you're having those check-ins, making sure that you are investing in time outside of work, your community. So like as a family, we respect that we can't tell each other everything all the time, and that expectation isn't fair. So make sure you have a community where you can go and just really unload, whether it is a therapist, a coach, a group, a forum that you're working with, and encouraging and facilitating that.
Right.
Because when you have a place to just like let it go, it's really important. Non-judging, like non-judgmental, and
Non-judgmental,
not
right.
feeling like yeah, that your family member is going to feel like, you're somehow going behind their back.
Right. And it's not complaining. You're there. Everybody needs a place to vent and to unload. And like, and then it helps you actually talk out the other things that you can sometimes get a different player in the picture. Um, I absolutely love that. So listeners, take note of that. The other nugget that you shared that I really, really want to commend you guys for is going outside and asking and researching other family businesses and getting from them and the therapists and the coaches like the good, the bad, and the ugly so that you could do the best you could to be the good. And
It's funny. You go.
no, no, go ahead because I just the reason why first of all it's so important, but literally this morning, um, it's actually on my chair over there. So I listen to certain books, and I listen to books all the time. So Jack Canfield talked about this morning. I mean, like not he talked about it in the book Success Principles. That is one of the key things that he talks about. So kudos to you. And so listeners, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and go on LinkedIn and find somebody who's doing what you want to do and ask them. Just ask.
That's so good. And I just had like a really fun unlock with that, which is when I was little and especially going through my teenage years, my mom would always tell me, as much as I want to be able to give you everything, I'm not going to be able to. So I support you. Go find the things that you need. If you have to have, one of those like mom mentors in your life because she can give you something that I can't, it is okay. I'm still your mom. And it's so funny because I'm like, I wonder if that was like the groundwork for being so intuitive to say, okay, it's okay to ask.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's fun.
I absolutely love that. I so love that. It's so great. And ask. So what one of the things that I have done with I have two kids. What I've done with my kids and when they were younger, we all walk around with the phone. I'm holding up my phone for those of you though that are listening and not watching. And I would tell my kids that when my kids were younger, they would say, "Okay, Mom, can we order pizza?" I'm like, "Great. If you want to order pizza, here. Here's my phone. You know how to unlock it. You figured out my code." Right? Dial the number and order pizza. And they were like, "Oh." I'm like, "Yeah, order a pizza. You want the pizza? You order it."
Hmm.
And it was giving them the skill to order or to pick up the phone more than anything and talk to somebody and ask, ask for questions, ask, oh, and I've always said, oh, I don't know the answer to that. Go look it up. Ask. Oh, go ask. Go ask.
That's so good. And that's so much power. That's back to choice,
Mm-hmm.
and just like really being empowered with the choice and the ability to go after and seek for what you would like.
Yeah.
And
And,
the
and
interesting thing is things just have a way of like happening when you're really intentional with that. It's like all of a sudden it's there for you.
right, and that's a key thing, being intentional. Sometimes the universe, if you put it out there, you hear people, and this is not woo woo. This is literally, if you put it out there, things will come to you. Trust me when I say that, because it does. So I love that you have done this with your family, and that you've worked through it and how to create that culture, and I think it is beautiful. So I'd like to talk a little bit about, because you ended up selling the company and then you brought it back. So walk us, I'd love to hear a little bit about that part of your story, because that to me, I'm thinking, oh my God, that had to be some tough times. And I'm like, I was holding my breath about that one.
Brutal, to say the least. Brutal. So here we grew super fast, and I'll rewind a little. The pandemic happened and we were mostly retail, right? Because if you have a cut, a scrape, or poison ivy, you go to your local pharmacy. And all of a sudden, no one's going into stores. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to fire everyone. We're not going to make it through the pandemic. And we very quickly shifted to an online business, like everyone else in the rest of the world. And you couldn't find packaging. And if you didn't pay for cash for packaging, sometimes 10x the price, you weren't going to get the packaging. So it was like the Wild West just to be able to put our salves in a container.
Oh my God.
And here we are like bootstrapping this. And so we get through the pandemic miraculously. And I'm like, we need to get more support. We're also going up against some of the biggest companies in the world, right? So they did just fine weathering the pandemic. And I saw so many businesses just not make it. And it was heartbreaking. So we started looking for a partner. That was really the original plan. And then we found this group that wanted to build a plant-based portfolio and put a number of plant-based brands into a bigger portfolio. They had an international footprint. They had really strong financials. And we're like, oh, this is perfect. We're not going anywhere, but we can expand globally. We now had interest in Japan, Korea, China, the UK, Europe, New Zealand, Australia. So we're like, this is a great way to go global too. And so all the boxes really were checked.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a handful of weeks into the partnership, um, the one of the founders faced major legal and financial issues, including being raided by the feds and a number of allegations that ultimately tarnished the company's reputation and their financing. And we had less than 24 hours to terminate our entire team. So the one thing that I got through in the pandemic, like, was my worst nightmare in that moment. My mom, my sister, my husband, my brother-in-law, my sister and brother had just adopted their second child, like a little tiny baby. I'm like, this is not happening. Employee number one, my best friends from college who had changed their careers. I mean, it was heartbreaking, so many tears. And so we let everybody go. And that day, well, the next day, my mom and I and sister are just sitting at the table, and I'm just like, I can't even get up. I felt like the weight of the world was on me, like someone had passed in my life, like I'd lost someone. And here we were unemployed. I lost my financial resources, like everything that we had built over the last 15 years plus, and my sense of purpose. Like, I'm like, what am I supposed to do every day now? This is like the thing that I've been fighting for every day. And you are so far from being in your body. Like, all you are is anxious about the future. How am I going to pay my bills? What am I going to do? And then you're ruminating on the past, like shoulda, woulda, coulda. What if I had done this? What if I had done that? It was a really tough place to be.
I can't even imagine it. And you know, there's great quotes, the past is not the place to live. It's not the place to make your home, right? So how did you get past that? And like so what happened day two?
Well, at that table, at one point, I put my lip balm on and I recognized that it was my last lip balm and production had stopped. And I was like, Jen, how many lip balms do you have? Did you stock up? And then, like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do without my repair? I put this on my entire body every day, my face wash. Like, I cannot live without this. And then my mom starts doing the same thing with my sister and I. And we're all like calibrating each other's inventory while I'm getting emails from people like, when are you going to be back in stock? This is the only thing that works. And, I kind of just was like, we got to buy the company back. But I didn't say it like I meant it. It was just like this little whisper that came through. And then I just moved on because how were we going to buy the company back? And then I remembered, I was like, oh, darn it. I've got a meeting with my coach on Monday and I need to tell him, like, I can't pay him. And I'd only been working with him for a little bit of time. So, like, I didn't know how this was going to go. And I was embarrassed and I just needed someone to tell me what to do. I'm like, I need someone to tell me what to do. And so I texted him and I was like, hey, I'm not going to be there Monday. I can't pay you. He's like, what happened? I'm like, lost the company, blah, blah, blah. And it was really short exchange. And then he was like, Jodi, I will be there every Monday at 5 o'clock until you don't need me anymore. Now, what's interesting about that moment, it gives me more insight to like the paralysis that people have, is that in that moment, I should have been thankful, but I wasn't. I was overwhelmed by the offer. I was like, one more person to disappoint. I don't have time for this. I'm like, I don't even know how I'm going to show up. I have nothing to give him. This is just inconvenient. So I had no intention of going to that meeting on Monday. And then Monday rolled around and I was like overwhelmed with guilt. I'm like, oh, he's such a nice person. I need to at least show up and say thank you, but no thank you. And I get on the phone with him and he's like, so what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know, Timmy. Like, we talked about maybe buying the company back, but like, how are we going to do that? And I'm like, well, what should I do? Tell me what to do. And he's like, I don't have the answer. You do. And I'm like, no, I don't. And he goes, I just need to get you mentally fit enough so you can find it.
Right.
And I'm like, what? And he's like, okay, you're going to set your alarm every 3 hours. I'm like, and in my mind, I still had a job, right? I'm like, how am I going to stop doing something every 3 hours? And then he's like, and then you're going to do a presence exercise. And I'm like, a what? I'm like, how does this have to do with anything? He's like, you'll see. He's like, I'm going to get you mentally fit enough and we're going to build this muscle. And then you're going to find out what you need to do. And I'm like, what is a presence exercise? And he's like, you're going to focus on one of your five senses for 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And we're just going to start with that. And I'm like, this is absurd. So I set my alarm. And the first time the alarm goes off, I take off my shoes. I go outside. And my husband's like, what are you doing? I'm like, Timmy says I have to do a presence exercise. He's like, a what? And so yeah, I'm like, and the first time was just so weird. I was just like, what am I doing? I'm like, focus on your feet, focus on your feet, feel the feet. And I'm like thinking of all the things that I should be doing that is not this moment. And I'm like,
That are not
just
your
do,
feet.
yeah, like just do the work, Jodi, do the work. And so I continued to do it. And what I found very interesting is that I I started to get better at it, whether it was like listening to the birds or focusing on the furthest sound or like focusing on my breath, looking at the horizon, studying a leaf, and it was just studying one of those five senses very intently. And then I started to enjoy it. And then I started to crave it. And then I started to want to do it longer, like 2 minutes. And we would meet every week. And most of it wasn't like our conversations were not around what you should do. It was kind of like, okay, how are these moments working for you? How are you showing up when you're doing them? How are you working on getting those thoughts out? Let me give you some other exercises that you can do during this time. And the best description I can give is like, those images when you have like the Neanderthal that's like we crawled and then we slowly started walking upright. That was it. And within about the fifth week, I was like, I got an idea. And he's like, of course you do. And it was just so interesting to see how it was like the inverse of what I would have thought in terms of building this quote unquote muscle, this mental fitness muscle, to give me the ability to get more present and
Mhm.
get more in my body, out of fight or flight, out of depression, and in the moment. So I had more curiosity, less judgment of myself, less judgment of other situations, and really just like bring it in to be able to have the confidence to go back to asking, oh yeah, I know this person, maybe he can help give me an idea. Okay, let's go to that meeting and maybe he's got some financial creativity, and like working my way into that. And it was really cool.
That is actually really cool. And it's true how that type of work truly does work. It helps you, it changes your focus.
And the amount of time that we spend ruminating on things that just don't serve us, that get in the way. And it's so interesting now when I think about like Green Goo in full circle and my work doing psychoneuroimmunology. And here I am in this moment and I'm learning more about how like the chemicals we put on our skin and in our body are putting in us in this low grade of fight or flight, and how that's showing up for us because inflammation, like cortisol goes up, inflammation goes up. Inflammation presents itself in a lot of different ways. Well, one of the ways it presents itself is in a chronic skin condition. It's not just pain, it could also be foggy brain, it could also be insomnia. And I'm like, wow, this is like a total full circle moment in terms of what I'm doing with Green Goo and having a better sense of awareness of the value of the things that you can do in your life that will serve you to stay in that state of presence. And as an entrepreneur and a high performer, and so you can be unstoppable, so that you can get that cortisol down, you can get that inflammation down, have your body more in a state of rest and recovery, because that's really where resilience lives, not in pushing in this fight or flight state that we really like kind of put as a badge of honor that that's what
Right.
we're supposed to do in order to be unstoppable.
Right. Right. It's finding that place where you can actually calm down and not, find a way to take whatever those negative thoughts are or those past bad thoughts or something that happened in the past. As you said, take out the woulda, coulda, shoulda. There is no woulda, coulda, shoulda ever because it happened, done. You can't change that. Okay, you learn from it, but get our head out of it. Find that way to sort of decompress so you can be more creative, so you can think clearly. It really, it makes a huge difference. I mean, it truly, truly does. And I'm so glad that you were able to do that. So then you got this creative way and you were able to buy the company back.
It took 18 months. And that was another like really good exercise for like I had to work on myself that entire 18 months because, like, so intently, because if I worried about the future, if like, am I going to get this across the finish line? Or started thinking about what I should have done instead of just being like intently focused in the present, the 18 months would have felt like forever. And so it was a really sweet time. And then back to that halo effect, the impact it had on my husband, my daughter. And like I tell this story often, it's so sweet because she went to go do an exam and she came back to tell us, like, how did your test go? I was picking her up and she's like, oh my gosh, mom. She's like, my teacher pulled me aside and was like, I need to talk to you. And she's like, oh my, I'm in trouble. And he's like, I really want to applaud you on how you take your test. And she was like, what? And he's like, you rubbed your fingertips together, you took a couple deep breaths, and then it just got in the moment. And you started working through the problems that you did know. And then you stopped and you took a couple more deep breaths and you got present and then you went back and leveraged what you did know to help you with what you didn't know. And I just want to tell you that was a really great job of taking a test. She's like, Mom, it was like I was talking to you.
It's
I'm like,
amazing how our kids pick up on things, the modeling of the behavior of things like that, right?
yes. And for her to be able to just access that in a place where, like, bless their hearts. I mean, if they're being inundated, if there's any generation being inundated with so much like impulsivity and decision making because of they're having so much coming at them at one time,
Right.
to be able to create that sort of like filter for yourself to like stay present. And I think too, as entrepreneurs, like I never thought, I remember meeting people that I was like, wow, they're like really zen and they're really focused. I want to like feel like that. But I'm like, I'm not going to meditate for 2 hours. I don't have time for that. And it's so cool. Like the science supports you don't need 2 hours.
You don't
Like
need to.
small moments throughout the day
Yeah.
while you are doing what you're already doing
Right.
gets you those results.
Right. So I took a course and got the certification. It was when you're talking about being present. One of the things, sorry, my for those listeners, if you are watching this, my dog right now is having a field day on my hand, loving to lick me. She loves me. So, but it was all about taking those deep breaths. It was about being present. It was about pressing your hands together. So if you're in a meeting, even if you are in a meeting and somebody says something, so before you react, it's like to train your body to take a breath and press on something. Put either whether you're pushing your hands together or putting your fingers, pressing them on the table, and being present in the moment and training ourselves to do that. I will tell you what, even just going through the certification and the coaching practice of that, it was it was blissful. And and I will tell you, I was very much like what you said in the beginning. You're like, what do you want me to do? Like, what? Because but it is amazing what happens when you do that. And to be able to teach that and for your daughter to be able to see that and learn that, oh, it's such a great gift. And listeners, I think this is also just a really key point. There are so many times that as an entrepreneur or when we're working up the corporate ladder and it is important to be able to have those moments that you can just ground yourself in
And building that muscle. Yes. I love how you describe that because what I've found is that when you invest in it outside of the quote unquote boxing match, so going into that meeting like you described, then you're able to access it quicker.
yeah.
So you can get present quicker to then respond in a way that's not going to be a reaction and it's really going to be a more thoughtful, productive response.
So, Jody, tell everybody, where's Green Goo now?
So Green Goo is available on our website and Amazon. So we are here today and we're slowly but surely getting in stock. So, our buyback was not very long ago. And so it's very interesting. It's like I don't like to use the word reboot because it sounds not forward facing.
How about 2.0?
Ooh, I like that 2.0.
Mhm.
And it's exciting because it's also very different, right? A lot has happened, whether you AI, social media, all the things. And so it's been really fun to learn even more new facets of like what we can be doing with Green Goo. Same formulas, same process, still bringing the plants to our manufacturer. It still blows my mind that these are formulas that started really for us in the 70s with Nan, who was my sister's mentor. And here we are, 50 years later, and they're still so relevant and still people's first choice. I can't tell you how many people come back and they're like, when you were out of stock, I tried this, I tried that. I'm so glad you're back in stock. And here brands are trying to just keep reinventing these different kinds of formulas. And I'm like, time-honored traditions are pretty darn cool. I mean,
You know,
these have been around for hundreds of years.
and the interesting thing about it is you don't have to make a chemical. You can just grow. and and there's a lot of extra benefits when you put plants out into the world. There's a lot of good that happens just by having plants. It reminds me of thinking about like that song, they paved paradise and put up a parking lot, right? That we don't need to pave anything. We just need to plant more. We need to plant and have and there's so much that plants can do. That's that's it's ancient history. I think back, you think about all the things that people did before we had chemicals. What were chemicals made? Why did they make them? They were to replicate what a plant did.
And to your point, like these man-made chemicals are maybe 100, 150 years old. They are new to our systems. They were born out of the Industrial Revolution when we could first mass produce consumer packaged goods to people. We didn't have the technology we have today. We didn't have the transportation or Amazon same day shipping. And there's this idea that more value means more volume. So you add water, and all of a sudden it can become a very unstable formula. And now you've got to add all these synthetics to have a stable formula so you don't get a moldy lotion and when it gets to your door in 3 years after it was produced. And so our body is not familiar with this stuff. It
Right.
doesn't know what to do with it. And plants have been around for so long. And what's interesting too is that when we did research over the last 150 years, we weren't doing research on botanicals. We were doing it on all of these other synthetics. And now finally there is resources and funding going towards botanical research. And now we can finally prove the data that was sort of anecdotal, where it was like, oh, my mom gets really great results from this, so I'm going to try it. But there really wasn't the science to support it. And so I love being able to bring that forward and going back to how just planting can bring so much joy. Well, now we have the data to support that when you put plants on your skin and ingest them and get the botanical compounds and nutrients from the plant, cortisol goes down, inflammation goes down. All of a sudden, things like insomnia, chronic skin conditions, cloudy, foggy brain, achy bones, like those things start to subside. Like, what if we could actually live not feeling that way? Because I think we've become so accustomed to being in this low grade state of fight or flight. It's just like what we know.
Right. It's so true. All right. So, Jody, I could talk about this for hours. I have 1,001 other questions, but maybe I'll just have to bring you back. Um, so, Jody, tell everybody where can they find all of this greatness, and connect with you.
Greengoo.com. And you can find me there. Or you can also find me on LinkedIn at Jodi A. Scott. And I'd love to hear from you.
All right. So fantastic. Listeners, so many bits, nuggets, words of wisdom. You heard the good, the bad, the ugly, and Jody is thriving with Green Goo. And so please do me a favor. Go to the website, get some for yourself. I'm going to be going there because I've been meaning to, because God, talk about eczema. Oh my God. That's a whole other story. But go to her website, go get some product. Share this episode because this is so rich with great nuggets. Subscribe if you haven't already. Again, share it, subscribe, and then please do me the next favor and head over to our school community and join Unstoppable Success. We have power hours. We are having monthly meetups where we actually get to brainstorm and we have guests. Maybe Jody will be a guest on 1 month where you get to ask lots of questions. So join us on school. We are sharing lots of information nuggets there. Jody, I cannot thank you enough for being an amazing guest. Thank you, listeners, for listening. This is the Unstoppable Success Podcast. I'm your host, Jaclyn Strominger. Keep listening. We appear every Tuesday and Thursday, and I cannot wait to help you keep leaping to your greatest success. I'm Jaclyn Strominger, and I want to invite you to join the Unstoppable Success community on School. You can go to Unstoppable Success at school-9143 and join us. In this community, you will get daily tips so that you can be unstoppable, and you'll also connect with other leaders and professionals who are also aiming for their unstoppable success and are there to help you succeed. So join us in the community. We can't wait to see you on school.